Fine. My name is Shiang. I'm the director of Hakka TV. Before I officially start my presentation, I would like to share one thing in particular. When we were arranging this summit, what I thought is, no matter where you are from, you may just come here, join us, share your expertise and professional experiences. However, we then realize it's quite a difficult task to have all these, for example, Maori, Sápmi, and Scottish Gaelic simultaneous interpreter here in Taiwan. Accordingly, I have to ask my distinguished guests today to deliver their speech and participate in the discussion in English. As to me, as the local speaker, I am honored to invite all of you to appreciate the beauty of my mother tongue, Hakka. In case you don't understand either of the language, no worry, we have prepared you the best quality of translation. I say that because one of them is actually my colleague, a senior reporter and a news anchor of Hakka TV, the second lady, Johan. All right, are you guys ready? Let's bring it on. 大家從拿到嘅素材，還有加下我嘅小姐，其他貴賓嘅小姐，我相信見談到一隻書詩啊，嗬，是係20。想講讓我見出現，當然已經講答案嘅。對2003年開台嘅客家電視台，今年做20歲生日。今輩大家來到現場兩場族群媒體嘅高峰會，是喺20周年以內的發通嘅重點之一。看轉頭擺後，我都特別講一事情，係講我1988年12月28改從萬我模擬嘅太遊行，其實要求廢除該時節講天法對你方言嘅限制。同時，政府係講冇制定相關嘅法令，包含拍委會、文化部、教育部冇推動相關嘅政策，冇客家電視台108嘅員工按3萬嘅付出，客家電視台冇可能做得行到根本日。其實作為一隻所有嘅預算都係來自納稅人稅金嘅公共媒體，我也係利用根本呢隻機會，特別來感謝大家對客家電視台20年來嘅大力支持。唔單止喺客家電視台聽聽，根本來到現場嘅，你看到。來自紐西蘭嘅 Whakaata 毛利電視台，還有本地人民會嘅人民台，分別都2004年3月28開台了，2005年7月初1開台。你係表示乜解？你根本經講到嗰隻數是20，殺下來忘記掉又係變24咧，分別都盲人啦後年。24客家電視台。已經為自家提出下一張20年，我哋想要做到嘅目標，所以變做客家電視2.0。要慢講做變做客家電視2.0，我哋提出來嘅策略是客家電視設計為超越客家電視 ，Hakka TV and beyond。提前我本大家來看一段短短嘅動畫片。很多客店，哈卡。
皮下跑一群人穿越時空，我前身係世界各地嘅客家國家。乜嘅？一個人無手機放上喎，
來大貨，來聽做大貨。
小到無數啲得地下，散發出黏黏嘅財富自由。係下空啦，下空。
也是錢錢啦，嘿嘿。
1710年，喺ban家渡航嘅一場放小貨，發現咗下空。伊睇啲下空起波嘅係前赴後繼嘅客家人，一直到今日，ban家渡航已有超過1/3人口係客家人，也比亞人太美麗貴。
有亞冇
？18世紀開始，東南亞各地陸續發現咗下空撈金礦。所以礦發大財，無工經驗樣做定咯。採礦工人唔但靠食苦耐勞，還要經驗和技術。故所一群勞工朋友對中國南方對嘅走過來，初時呢前來探索一片新天地。
客家阿哥出門做事了，
一批海外客家人嘅移民先鋒，啲南洋地區有3萬大兵嘅應酬基金是招牌。各位一百條樹丫丫啊，前來客家島嘅同鄉盤呢，並且天天嘅世界性龐大嘅移民沙比，一個人一度啊，各式各樣嘅需求做伴滿足。想認識朋友，想採集進修，係你單純項目，也係想開講認識異性朋友，還是傳宗接代嘅使命咯。嘿嘿，經營做事業，比個老水下。比個就會客家有名嘅超級新樹村，派聯誼去醫院老好搞，電視上面沒有。比起一般啲台灣看到嘅同鄉比老比個，功能客家齊全，也最人講嘅客家比個，干唔一聲，上路平時，做下搞不完啦。
你照短短的樣片後，講出2件當重要的事情。第一，大家可能一定也知識講，原來世界各地都有客家人。2件事情含一個重點，都加下個樣片裡都唔知大家有感受到嘛？是講，然後基本落到現場按演來嘅，從毛利電視台、Sápmi電視台比起來，最大嘅所長是係拿 Shiang。佢嘅電視台嚟講，全世界最多毛利人呢，是喺佢嘅家鄉紐西蘭。那Johan嚟講，全世界最多Sápmi人呢，也係佢來自嘅國家挪威。不過，全世界最多客家人嘅地方，並唔係呢自家台灣。我用幾隻簡單嘅數據，幫大家做把握一下客家嘅概況。全世界因為冇一個中央物嘅統一的機關做咧統計講，各國到底有幾多客家人，加起來嘅數量係幾大？故所大體一隻數是差唔多係8000萬邊嘅，其中最多嘅當然係到中國，尤其係東南海順，加起來應當有6000萬上下。而你自家台灣咧，台灣2350萬人地度，客家人徛喺咧467萬，你喺客委會親身嘅統計。也是講5xã當中是有1xã係客家人，客家人對台灣嘅比例徛喺20%多。不過大家可能話到，家嘅數字看起來，然後其他幾隻族群相比，你客家人冇按弱勢啊，因為既然比例按高，有乜嘅好笑嘅？強一份調查，然後你講哪個隻，你要特別注意嘅素材。當過了條橙色的線，係對2年前的時間，客委會調查講，全台灣為談客家話比例係56.4%，另外還有第二項係為講客家話係客家人哦，你係母體係客家人係38.3%，但請看數字還冇按等於 V 啊，你係講將時間來下長來看10年。你看2023年，你看2條線呈現係過去10年的趨勢。一開始你還有635，我講係漸漸一般。不過大家在看到，漸來漸減，減少嘅比例，不論談嘅能力還講嘅能力，都漸來漸高。客家電視台其實根本都現場，你2場論壇，大家都數察在看到，加起來係有6隻無共用嘅電視台嘅代表，你是從係6股力量，而面對大家看到，仍然是用更減少嘅2隻趨勢，你要抵抗佢，你希望做得透過媒體，幫大家再用樣音嘅資料，用行社嘅發通，用各種聲音嘅節目，用新聞，鬼言透天嘅想辦法。 唔但將愛減緩，還係希望做得增加各次族群語言本使用嘅能力、本使用嘅機會。但我哋看到係客家電視台，一年差唔多做920點鐘編了各種各樣嘅節目。你下家包含市長，還有董事長有講到對公司法、修法，並讓通過國家語言發展預算，客家電視台拿到嘅預算增加到減台幣係6億邊呢。故所應當有很多嘅資源來做事情。你樣辦樣機會變做客家電視2.0，有3隻策略。第一隻我哋希望客家電視台以客家為本，唔單止係客家天天，Hakka TV and Beyond Hakka。下邊2段簡單嘅新聞，大家先看一下。
1812年初，行業能力基礎級開初級認證是由接受名錄報名，其中初級到台資、台東廠學，2月初意思就接受本大家去報名，按算5月27就愛考。台東縣政府期盼嘅考前準備班，希望也擺合格嘅人數會超過130人。
行業初級認證到台資、台東廠，自2月起是開放報名，就合費嘅統計。自2017年到一下，台東廠初級認證報名人數當然大概喺230人以內。
2段簡單嘅新聞，我留大家提供2則資訊。第一，你係我哋黨主條12點半到1點半嘅黨主新聞，大家做嚟發現，客家電視台嘅新聞全場講客，唔過全場 live 嘅新聞也有中文嘅字幕，同時，嗱一則你做到其他人冇做到嘅。你含有數語主播，故說客家電視台，你也係全台灣所有嘅媒體當中，兼顧你2項需求嘅電視台。故說你就算他唔是客家話，你來看客家電視，也做得完全理解你放鬆嘅內容。聽咧應該講客家電視、客家為本，唔限制到客家。你作為電視台，哪一隻策略要超越電視？客家電視台提供。傳承係你對客家電視台最常條出現嘅統詞，係個名詞係客家本身。傳承嘅傳本嘛啥，當然係你嘅行業台。所以我哋當清楚講，我有很多人來講客話，除了現有以外，是你嘅子孫後台。故所你是將你所有做過嘅節目，尤其係預售節目，整理過後由內通嘅。變到名錄項，係建置了一隻叫做客家社學堂嘅網站。你建置了這網站，就有當多種嘅用法。第一，大家看到蛋糕，四海太平安5隻腔調都有。另外，針對無腔嘅對象，你係講你係學生啊，你自家做啲用以上嘅學嘅主題，係講你係先生，你也整理嘅各種嘅教學嘅資源。我可以點一下教學資源嗎？呢度大家是會看到，教育部做模擬教學有各種無腔樣嘅版本，你針對無腔嘅版本，都已經為所有愛教行業嘅先生做好按嘅教學資源。好，請回到投影片。你而家看到客家電視愛超過自家電視嘅專業，你做咧語言教學嘅網站，另一方面。你對今年20周年年終嘅時節，也辦了一場對台灣從來唔是有過按大型嘅客家演唱會。今日對台北音樂流行中心落嚟超過3000幾觀眾，共下來享受2場客家嘅音樂饗宴。你簡單來看一下今日精彩嘅畫面。
情谊，今夜情谊，拜哟拜哟拜哟拜哟拜拜哟，有我的天下。我拢会使，若是你行安，找无所在，找无所在。
像我甲他讲到的，客家电视台从来是唔系单枪将这个汉字对客家的，故说就说系以客家为名的演唱会，我冇听到好咯。我们也有原住民的歌手。另外一点，特别讲呢，第三只策略系客家电視台雖然你身在台灣，不過你唔會將自家曲下對台灣天天。所以 Hakka TV we care Hakka people not only Taiwan and worldwide。你也係乜解咧？過去3年嘅疫情，客家電視台其實當關心為在世界各地嘅客家鄉親。不過你無法度出去採訪，故所我哋想到是透過視訊連線嘅方式，讓各地各國家起來地圖超過20個國家客家鄉親，然後佢哋連線。一方面關懷佢哋，另一方面也透過佢哋自家。對日本、對德國、對英國、對法國、對紐西蘭、對美國，來留你小記講，用其技術嘅觀察，到底對改變嘅世界資訊無按流通，無是媒體無關注到黑色地方嘅世界，佢哋做啲大部分藝條技術嘅報道、技術嘅觀察，你係藝條對疫情期間作為海外鄉親談疫情，你也是客家台灣、客家電視希望行出台灣。去關懷世界嘅客家人。Last but not least， 客家電視台從時間以來，當初都傾聽一個以社會節目，很多社會事件譜。今年社會事件譜呢一個節目要減減一般嘅內容，係同烏克蘭嘅戰爭有關。同烏克蘭人對過去620年所失去嘅、所承受嘅。尤其係社會嘅，然後佢哋比起來，我哋做嘅根本唔算乜嘅。我哋發現烏克蘭人透過佢哋嘅堅強，透過佢哋嘅韌性，把我哋嘅下二代，就算對台灣也親身見證嘅，保有自家嘅族群語言，還有文化認同，唔單止係存在嘅文化嘅象徵意義，對政治上。對實際上也有動態影響力。故所社會事件譜，你去邀請烏克蘭走出來嘅後生人到節目地度嚟接受訪問，你邀請去過烏克蘭戰場嘅記者嚟接受訪問，我哋盼嘅一場發展，突發嘅內容係烏克蘭嘅社會對戰爭當中所發嘅，我哋喺做嚟底下會看到一個沉浸式嘅劇場，你喺台灣。對兒童節目當中啊，係冇人做過嘅，嚟看一下呢一段影片。
有一句話係人講嘅，從來就冇發現和平，未冇好嘅戰爭。戰爭的無情同悲傷，係個冇實際經驗過，有嘅未唔會點。然而，唔係青少年來到一間有東歐氣氛的屋嘅，參加一場沉浸式劇場。喺大陸人嘅帶動下，佢哋喺批定一類烏克蘭嘅家庭同相爭嘅情形下，做出選擇。
我今天收到的消息就是这样啊。今天呢会有5位感应者，我今天呢会有一个非常重要的任务要给大家。这个任务是穿越时空，用你们的感应力，我们要打开一个旅程了。我们第一步要做的事情是请5位互相帮忙，把眼睛给蒙起来，然后待会你们就看不到了一小阵子啊。哎呀呀呀哎！现在呢，小屋带你们来到这个陌生的空间。等一下，这个灯，还有桌上这台电脑，它会带着我们连线到另外一个时空，一个叫苏菲的女孩的世界。我们马上来试试看喽。
2022年2月24日，空襲警報上嘅，蘇菲未上嘅，基本蛋應該從平常用嘅。先叫賴床的妹妹米拉起床，再過去食家婆做嘅鬆餅，聽家講讀報紙當紅嘅新聞。不過今日一切都不一樣了。
以上係我嘅分享。也係客家電視台希望做得變做客家電視2.0嘅生態策略。第一，客家電視要超越客家；第二，客家電視希望超越電視；第三，客家電視希望自家做得超越台灣。不過用講嘅很簡單，頭前的20年，你行到很辛苦咧。下那唔是講3後來20年，係咪遇到乜嘅競爭、乜嘅挑戰？我相信呢一部分留到等下討論嘅階段。做得有很多嘅分享，係講各位針對我家下講嘅內容，有想要過去了解，也係講我多看一下我分享嘅樣片，中文嘅部分，然後英文嘅部分，大家做得掃描，你對熒幕打嘅 QR code，你隨時都做得幫大家來做進一步嘅參考。以上係我嘅分享，希望大家按住先。
Ka te kia ora rā tātou e hui hui nei tēnei rā. Me tīmata rā hau i roto i taku reo, e whai wai ai a hau ki roto ki tēnei whenua i tā wāhi nei i Taiwan. Nō reira tēnā koutou, karanga mai, karanga mai, karanga mai. Ngā mate, huia mai rātou ki konei, hei mihi, hei tangi, hei poroporo aki mā tātou. A koutou mate, āku mate, huia mai ki konei koutou, kei te wāhi ngaro, haere atu rā koutou. Tātou e hui hui nei, tātou e whai nei o rātou tapu wai tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. We don't have a Māori language interpreter here, as Director Paul Shiang said earlier, so I will translate for you. It gives me great pleasure to be here today, to be here in Taipei and Taiwan. And I thank our wonderful hosts, Hakka TV, for the invitation to be here today. I also acknowledge my ancestors and your ancestors, those that have passed, that have gone before us. We acknowledge them and we pay our respects to them. Some of you may know that actually my ancestors many, many years ago travelled here on a waka or on a canoe by water. I travelled here on a different canoe, one in the sky. I come from Aotearoa, New Zealand. Many of you will know where it is. It's about a 12-hour flight by air. And as I say, the connection that we have as Māori, as Indigenous peoples to Aotearoa, to here in Taiwan, very, very strong connections. Because my ancestors, when they left our homelands of Hawaii Nui many, many thousands of years ago, they traveled the world and came to Taiwan. That's why some of us look similar. Sometimes I get mistaken for being Taiwanese Indigenous. I want to congratulate Hakka TV on 20 years. I was here only 1 month ago, where I was invited to speak at the Global Hakka Convention, where I was also able to go and visit the Hakka exhibition and to see Hakka TV exhibition. And as you can see, they put me in front of a camera to read the news for Hakka TV. But I acknowledge Hakka TV and the 20 years that you are celebrating this year. And as Director Paul said earlier, Whakaata Māori, we will celebrate our 20 years next year. But actually, our history in media goes much, much further back than that. Māori had our very first media in the early 1800s. Whakaata Māori is part of a much wider ecosystem through Māori radio, Māori television, and now, of course, Māori digital, Māori online. So while we will acknowledge 20 years next year, actually our legacy, our history goes much further back than that. Whakaata Māori, our mission is to inspire audiences to speak Māori language and to value our culture through the content that we create and deliver across multiple platforms, on television and on digital online platforms. It's through the content that we create that we aim to inspire audiences right across the globe, Māori and non-Māori, to learn the language, to use the language, and then to share the language with their children and grandchildren and future generations. Because we know that only by speaking the language and sharing the language within your household, with your children and grandchildren, that our language will survive. I want to share with you a video that talks about why we were set up, that gives you an understanding of the state of the Māori language and why we exist. And so in this video that you will see shortly, it gives you an understanding of the journey that we have been on, but also the journey that we are currently on.
Each year, over 1.5 million people tune into Te Matatini, a Māori performing arts extravaganza that celebrates our language and culture. It is the biggest platform for the Māori language to be heard worldwide. Prior to European settlement, Māori were thriving, and the Māori language was dominant in New Zealand. Colonisation decimated the Māori population, crippling the ability to pass the Māori language on to future generations. The Native Schools Act 1867 punished children who dared to speak Māori.
Our grandmother generation wasn't encouraged to speak Māori. they were strapped for speaking Māori.
It was an era which saw the birth of Māori language preschools, schools, universities, and radio stations, all dedicated to language survival.
Broadcasting is perhaps the most powerful medium of communication that we have.
In 2004, New Zealand's first Indigenous television network aired without apology. Today, Māori television's digital strategy connects our families, our audiences, and our language to the Māori world.
If our tamariki are excited and invigorated and feel like the reo is relevant to their world, then we are winning.
The content we create influences how our future generations see themselves and how the world sees them.
Whakaata Māori is giving space to a voice to be heard.
It is a digital footprint we will imprint forever.
So 200 years ago, Aotearoa, New Zealand was a Māori language only speaking country, only 200 years ago. In the early 1900s, 100 years later, 90% of Māori people could still speak the language. Today, only 20% can hold a conversation in the language. 1 in 5 Māori. 2% of the entire New Zealand population can speak the language. As you can see, the state of our language is in a dire state, which is why organisations like Whakaata Māori, like Māori Radio, and like other initiatives have been established over the past 30, 40 years to try and reverse the decline in language use and the number of language speakers. So let there be no confusion. The reason why we exist is to support language revitalisation, because we know the language, our mother tongue, will only survive if we are speaking the language and sharing the language with our babies, with our grandchildren, and with future generations. So how do we do this? Our job is to create content and to share that content to as many people as possible. But it's the how that is important. Mana motuhake is the term that we use in the Māori language to describe independence and autonomy, because we believe that we have the right as Indigenous peoples to make decisions for ourselves, not to be subservient or to be dictated to by anyone else, because we believe that we hold the solutions, for our future. We have bold aspirations for our babies, for our people, and for future generations. So we must be allowed to do that in our way. And I raise this because it's very important for us as Whakaata Māori, as the only independent, national, Indigenous broadcaster in Aotearoa, New Zealand, that we have that ability to determine our own future. And so this here is our recently opened new studio. They told us that we would never get it built. No money, no public support. But as you can see, we did it. We talk about by Māori, with Māori, and about Māori, because for far too many years, our stories were told by other people. Our stories were not told by us. So Whakaata Māori enables us as Māori to tell our stories. Māori make up 17% of New Zealand's population. And so you understand the numbers, it's roughly 800,000 people. 1 in 2 Māori are under the age of 24. Unfortunately, that's not me. It's important to understand that because that means that the content that we deliver needs to resonate and to appeal to younger audiences as well as older audiences. We have a very youthful population. Our content is viewed by 50,000 people using TV every day. Online, roughly 100,000. So 150,000 people, generally, give or take, are consuming the content that we create every day. And as you can see, the TV viewership is a lot less than the online, which will come as no surprise to anyone in this room. We face many challenges. We like to refer to them as opportunities. Funding, we never have enough money. We never have enough funding. And so that will always be an ongoing challenge for us. We are primarily government funded, so it does mean that politicians, government decision makers determine the level of funding that we receive. We were very fortunate with our recent minister to receive increased funding 2 years ago. However, that is only temporary, and so we are working very hard now to try and secure permanent funding moving forward. Content engagement, because there is so much content, there's an oversaturation of content available to viewers on many different platforms. We are not only in competition with our local broadcasters, but with international multi-billion-dollar producers of content, many of whom I don't need to mention. And thirdly, workforce. Because we have such a small population that can speak the language, we never have enough people with the right skills to be in the roles that we have at Whakaata Māori, which is why we work very hard to train, to coach, to develop language speakers, so those that may have been educated through Māori language schools, who have the language and who have a passion to create content, we train them to be the broadcasters, the faces, the voices of today and for tomorrow. Briefly, I want to also talk about an opportunity, because we realize that we must work with others. We don't have all of the skills and the resources to be able to do what we want to do. So it means that we've got to form partnerships, like the signing of the MOU today. We need to be working with others who share similar goals with us and explore different ways of how we can collaborate and work and complement each other in the work that we do. This here is a partnership that we entered into 2 years ago with a content producer who works with secondary schools. As I mentioned earlier, one of our key target audiences is young people, is our youth. And so this collaboration enables us to deliver sports content, and as you can see, 834 hours. Well, more than that with the 77 hours there too, in 1 year, which has reached an audience of 12.2 million people. Not only does that give us content that appeals to a much younger audience, but it also is taking our language into domains and spaces that the language has never been in before. We now have our language being spoken on the sports field in secondary schools. We now have our language being spoken during practices, during training, and in the schools in which they represent. So we're very proud of this partnership that we entered into 2 years ago. Technology is another big opportunity for us as well. We have our app, Māori Plus. We are also currently in discussions about what we do with TV. The reality is TV is very expensive, and the decline in audiences using TV is happening very quickly. So we're having to discuss what we do with our resources. Do we continue to support TV that is very expensive with shrinking audiences, or do we look instead to invest in digital, where audience growth is happening every day? I mentioned to you earlier about growing our workforce capability and doing the training that we do. We do most of our in-house training to develop our workforce for today and tomorrow. And finally, I just want to talk about WITBN, the World Indigenous Television Broadcasters Network, in which TITV and NRK Sápmi are members. Next year, we will host the WITBN conference, where we will be bringing together broadcasters and content producers from around the world to have conversations about the opportunities that exist for collaboration, for partnership, but also for us to be able to continue to share and learn from each other. We have a saying in my language, e hara taku toa I te toa taki tahi, he toa taki tini ke. Our strength is not by the individual, our strength is in unity and of the many. And that is why we invite you all. It is only a 12-hour flight from Taipei to Aotearoa, March 2024, only a few months away. We would like to reciprocate and extend the wonderful hospitality that we have received here to you all. Book your flights. I hear China Airlines has a good special on at the moment. And finally, I just want to acknowledge our Indigenous brothers and sisters, Chairman Maraus, CEO Alang, thank you. It is wonderful to be back here in Taiwan, in your beautiful country. The country that not only belongs to the Indigenous people, but everyone that is here. Thank you for your hospitality. Thank you for your invitation. We wish Hakka TV all the very best for the next 20 years, the next 200 years, and even beyond. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, kia ora tātou katoa. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Taurima, for your sharing.
Tachri na dúine far nach tachar na craich. Literally, this means that people will meet where the hills cannot. In other words, people will always find a way to be together and work together despite the obstacles. A good thought in troubling times. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for inviting me to speak at this important summit, and especially to Director Paul of Hakka TV, to Vivian and to all who have arranged this event. I'm sorry I cannot speak your beautiful language, but please accept my greetings to you all from Scotland, and kia ora to our Māori colleagues and bures to our friends from Sápmi. I'm here to talk to you about a unique and beautiful language, Gaelic, and a television service called BBC ALBA that celebrates it. Gaelic is more than just a language. It's a vital part of Scotland's cultural heritage. It connects people to their ancestors, their traditions, and the unique identity of the Scottish Highlands. Gaelic is not just about words, it's about storytelling, poetry and song. It's a living tradition that carries the soul of a community. I'll share with you some of the challenges we face, some of the solutions we are seeking, and how we might think about collaboration between other Indigenous minority language broadcasters. Gaelic is a Celtic language spoken primarily in Scotland. It has a rich history rooted mainly but not exclusively in the traditions of the Scottish Highlands and Islands. Gaelic's roots date back to the Celtic-speaking peoples who migrated to Scotland around 500 AD, when travel by sea was the fastest way to get around. St Columba, for example, travelled from Ireland to Scotland in 563 AD. His memory is retained in Gaelic place names across Ireland and Scotland, and also in the oldest Gaelic writings, handwritten in the 12th century into the margins of the Book of Deer, a book of Gospels written in Latin which was already 200 years old by then. And this story is still relevant in the present day, with BBC ALBA in collaboration with Irish broadcasters TG4 and BBC Northern Ireland once again telling the story of Columba, this time on screen. So Gaelic is an old language, and it's written into the fabric of Scotland. Gaelic was dominant many centuries ago, but usage declined due to political and social changes. As you can see from the slide, the use of English has become so widespread that Gaelic as a community language is mainly now confined to the northwest of Scotland. Despite the decline, efforts to preserve and promote Gaelic have been ongoing. There are now over 5,000 children in Gaelic medium education, and we have a Gaelic language television service, BBC ALBA, which I will come to shortly, as well as new language learning initiative called Speak Gaelic. Around 87,000 people in Scotland have some Gaelic skills. 1/4 of them live in the cities of Glasgow and Edinburgh, and there are around 2,000 speakers in Canada. And every month around 50,000 people come to our online learning resources. Although it is recognised as a minority language with legal protections, Gaelic's challenges include the movement of speakers away from Gaelic-speaking communities, language shift, that's when speakers gradually switch to a more dominant language, and a need for more speakers. Today, it also faces challenges from a flood of majority language media that threatens its very survival. It's not just Gaelic that this applies to. Look at the case of Icelandic, a majority language whose population are so good in the use of English language digital media. Iceland's mother tongue and cultural identity is drowning in an online ocean of English, says the byline. I cannot say if that is true, but that is what was reported. Our media has a role in addressing those concerns for our languages. So let me tell you just a little bit about the organisation that I am CEO of. MG ALBA means Gaelic Media Scotland. We were set up by the UK government in 1990 when they recognised the need for more Gaelic television programmes, and we are now funded by the Scottish Government. We have a vision, a route map for Gaelic media, which you can read on our website. Our ambition is always to provide the highest possible quality media content in Gaelic, which connects with younger users of the language, as well as reaching people across the UK and globally on all platforms, and by doing this, to help create social value such as jobs, business growth, participation in our language, and a new generation of media creators. That is our vision. To achieve that, we are in partnership with the BBC. The first ever Gaelic programme was, in fact, a BBC radio programme broadcast almost exactly 100 years ago. Since then, the BBC has been creating and broadcasting radio and television programmes in Gaelic. In 2008, MG ALBA and the BBC signed an agreement to create a partnership television service called BBC ALBA. And MG ALBA and the BBC now work together to fund and to operate this service. So, that's enough of the history. Let's talk about BBC ALBA. Who is it for? Well, that is fairly easy. BBC ALBA is a service for people who use the Gaelic language. But it is also a service for a whole number of other people. In fact, anyone who finds BBC ALBA's content enjoyable or useful. Good examples are our sports coverage, our music, our documentaries with English language subtitles. Although there are less than 100,000 people with Gaelic skills, the weekly reach of BBC ALBA is many times more than that. Digging a bit deeper, I thought I would frame a few thoughts about BBC ALBA in terms of its function as a minority language media service. First of all, a minority language media service is about rights. The rights of Gaelic users, in our case, to have a media service in their own language. This is the starting point for legislation and policy decision making. Secondly, it is about value. What value can the media service create? And here we're into a veritable treasure trove. BBC ALBA, and I would argue any Indigenous minority language service, helps to preserve and promote the language, the culture and traditions of its communities, and through using the language, storytelling, musical and cultural expression. It empowers minority language communities by giving them a voice and representation in the broader media landscape, allowing them to tell their own stories, address issues important to their communities, and challenge stereotypes and misrepresentations. It helps with community building and education. It fosters connection among speakers and learners of the language, and by providing media content, including news and documentaries, it helps to pass down traditional knowledge and values to younger generations. And thirdly, it is about participation. In our case, will our Gaelic language survive and thrive in the digital world? We think that if our media content is excellent, and if our media content is easy to find and easy to enjoy, then lots of people will like it and lots of people will consume it. And that in turn will create meaning and will create participation in the digital realm in our own language. I am sure I do not need to say too much to you all about our challenges, as no doubt you are facing them too, but I will summarise them. Traditional broadcasting viewing is in decline, in the UK at least. It is still hugely important for appointment to view content such as news, sports and events, but consumers now have many more choices. Live TV continues to be very important, especially to older consumers, but as you can see from this slide, the age group from 16 to 34 years of age are much lighter consumers of live television and much higher consumers of subscription video on demand and video sharing such as YouTube and TikTok. Younger adults, as we know, are large internet users. They regularly multitask. They need mobile-driven content that grasps their attention in 3 seconds. They are changing their media habits rapidly. But it is not just younger viewers who are changing. There is good evidence in the UK that older viewers are now also changing their habits and changing them fast. So we, who are broadcasters, need to keep up. At the end of this presentation, you'll be able to see and enjoy some examples of our content. I can tell you that our news service drives the daily habits of many of our television viewers. It is the heartbeat of BBC ALBA, but it is essential for it to develop its digital presence. Our sports programming helps bring us big audiences, helping us reach 4 or 5 times the number of people who speak Gaelic each week. Our music programmes also draw a large audience, not just from the language community, but many viewers who find BBC ALBA a good place to find the kind of music that they like. Documentaries are also an important way for BBC ALBA to reach out to new audiences, and we provide English language subtitles on all our documentaries so that as many people as possible can access them and enjoy them. And the two genres that really do hit the mark with our core viewers are drama and comedy. Unfortunately, we do not have the funds to commission a lot of drama or comedy, but when we do, our audience respond strongly, and those two genres in particular are very successful at reaching the 16 to 34 younger adult audience that is so elusive for broadcasters. And I should mention two very important other aspects of our work. The first is Film G, the Gaelic short film competition that finds, nurtures and develops new talent for Gaelic media. The competition has been running since 2008 and has served as a springboard for many successful media careers, both within BBC ALBA and beyond. And there is Speak Gaelic, a new multi-platform language learning project which offers learners of Gaelic courses in community and online, plus media content, television, radio, YouTube, podcasts and social media, all of which will support anyone to learn Gaelic, from zero to hero. Finally, going back to my opening words about how people will meet where the hills cannot, perhaps I can share some thoughts about how we can foster collaboration between us. I think the first and easiest is for us to share knowledge. Sure, we will see many differences between us, but we will also find that we have so much in common. Wouldn't it be valuable for us to know what is working for you, what you have tried, what lessons did you learn from failures, what big ideas are you thinking about? This could be about programs, it could be about digital projects, about marketing strategies, and so on. We could take that even further and use the experiences of each other to help us make the case to our stakeholders and to our governments and to promote our media. Another good way for us to collaborate could be through content sharing or co-production. As you will know, doing this successfully is not as easy as it might sound. A programme or piece of media content created for a local audience may not travel well, but through good networking and honest collaboration, we should be able to do more of this. Our languages are very different, but with rapid changes in media consumption, we could work together to demonstrate all the different ways in which our media services support our languages and communities to survive and thrive, so that we can advocate with our stakeholders for the support we need. You will all have different thoughts about how this can be done, and sharing our perspectives would be such a good thing. In conclusion, the Gaelic language is an essential part of Scottish culture, and BBC ALBA is a powerful ally in its preservation. While facing challenges like a declining number of speakers and language shift, solutions are being sought through education, media and cultural events. Collaboration with other Indigenous minority language broadcasters is a promising way forward. By sharing content, creating language learning initiatives and advocating together, we can work hand in hand to preserve our languages and cultures for generations to come. Together, we can ensure that the rich tapestry of minority languages around the world continues to thrive. Thank you. Ta believe.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the grand welcoming, and thank you for inviting us here to Taiwan. Thank you to Paul and your team. It's a big honor to be here, and it's really inspiring to learn from you. I've been I've been impressed by your work. Yesterday we had a nice dinner together with Hakka TV and your partners and TITV, and I'm impressed on how you collaborate here and how you take new steps to gather your audience. So my name is Johan. I'm the director or the senior vice president. English is not my mother tongue, so I'm not familiar with the titles. In Sápmi, I'm a director, a Norwegian director. Who cares? I'm from NRK Sápmi. I come from the very north, from the European Arctic. It's a 12-hour flight from Taiwan to Norway, and then another 2-hour flight up north. Yesterday, when I spoke with my family, it was minus 20 degrees below. So it's quite nice to be here in plus 30. In 2 weeks, the polar nights will start. That means that until mid-January, we will have no sunlight. So that's probably sounds tough to you, but we, as all other people on Earth, we love our lands, where we come from. We have vast tundras, we have high mountains, we have fjords. It's a beautiful country. I invite you to come to Sápmi whenever you can. So please let me show you. Let me take you to my homelands. So that is the introduction to our National Day show that we broadcast every year on NRK1. That's the far largest TV channel in Norway, gathering the whole population of Norway, potentially 5 million. The show has a couple of 100,000 viewers each year. And that illustrates the direction we have gone into for the last couple of years. From being a broadcaster mainly for the Sámi population, we now also increasingly are taking part of the national agenda, and that's quite important for us. But first, let me tell you some about the Sámi people, who we are. Well, we come from the northern parts of Scandinavia and even the Kola Peninsula in northwestern parts of Russia. We've populated these lands for as long as history goes. In fact, they've done DNA research, and no one really can track where we came from before. And that doesn't really matter because, well, as far as our memory goes, we have always been the caretakers of our lands for at least, probably for thousands of years. Our population our people is divided between 4 countries: Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Russia, as I said. But even though, as the Hakka people, we also consider ourselves as one people with one identity, even if we are divided by the borders. Our population, we don't have any exact number of how many we are. We believe that we are 100,000, but that's a really rough estimate since we don't have any official register on ethnicity in Norway. I should also mention that we have 9 separate Sámi languages. And they are really separate. Me speaking Northern Sámi, I cannot understand one speaking Southern Sámi. But we still consider ourselves as one people, as I said. As many other indigenous peoples and minorities, we also have faced very harsh assimilation. This photo, I find this a very sad photo. It's showing a young Sámi boy doing his very best to spell a language that was forced upon him and that he didn't know when he entered school. This is from a boarding school where children were not allowed to use any other languages than Norwegian. And that was really sad. My dad has told me that he spent several years at school struggling with Norwegian, and for some years he didn't understand almost a word. And that has had huge consequences for the Sámi population in terms of lost identity, lost language. Many have struggled with trauma due to the Norwegianization politics, as it is called. And it was a politic that was forced upon us. That it was done in parallel in all the 4 countries that we inhabit. And it lasted from approximately 1850 to sometime after World War II. Last June, we had a Truth and Reconciliation Council in Norway. They made a report that was handed over to the Norwegian Parliament. It documented the massive abuses done in the name of that politics, and also suggested some actions to be taken. And we have, of course, big expectation to what's going to happen after that. So I represent NRK Sápmi. Tell you some brief facts on the organization. We're approximately 90 employees. We have an annual budget of approximately $10 million US. We also we have content on TV. We also have radio content, and nowadays increasingly more and more online content. We also have close collaboration with SVT in Sweden and Yle in Finland and SR in Sweden, with a shared vision of uniting the Sámi people. We're part of NRK, and NRK is a Norwegian broadcasting corporation. I'm part of the top management group in NRK, and we are one of 4 content creating divisions within NRK, alongside with the news division, the regional division, and the program division. There has been some discussions, and I know the question has been raised that shouldn't we have a separate broadcaster independent from NRK. That's not a very big question anymore among the Sámis, and I strongly believe that we are very happy within NRK that well, you must consider that some of our language are quite small. The South Sámi language, for instance, have less than 500 speakers. And I believe that the benefits of belonging to a strong organization exceeds the benefits that we would have by being separate. So we can, as I used to say, it doesn't matter. You don't need to be a Sámi to do accounting or do technology. but it matters that you have Sami content on screen and that the stories are told by Sami, so thus we can focus on doing content and not all the other stuff surrounding that. Being a small people, I think that's the best solution for us nowadays. Strategy-wise, as you see, NRK has a very common strategy. I think that is something you can recognize from other public broadcasters. We're considered as glue in the Norwegian society. We're committed to providing content and filling the needs of the entire population, all the people living in Norway. However, but I would emphasize that from this year, the responsibility for the Sami language and culture has been highlighted, as you can see on the top line of NRK's main long-term strategy, that NRK enriches Norwegian and Sami language and culture. And that is really important for us, that NRK shows commitment and responsibility to Sami language and culture. So we've been asked to talk or tell something about our beliefs for the future, not only where we stand. And I set up some opportunities and some challenges. I'm really optimistic. I see more opportunities that are listed here. I believe that we are entering the golden age of indigenous and minority broadcasting. I strongly believe that, and I think there are two main forces behind that. The first is that, and that is something I can see all over the world, not only in the Sami community, but I see that more and more indigenous people show their pride, they take back their identity, and they receive more and more recognition. I see that in the Sami community. I see that artists, Sami artists, Sami musicians, and the traditional bearers, they take more and more place in the society, and they're no longer ashamed of showing their culture, as was the case only some generations ago, I'm sad to say. I also see that there is an increased focus on diversity worldwide. Not long ago, the main way of telling the stories was the Hollywood way. Nowadays, I see that there is increasingly demand for authenticity. That broadcasters, they want stories that have local roots and that show diversity. And that is something that we can see even at home. Both Netflix, Disney, right now they are shooting TV series with Sami directors, Sami talents in most key positions. In Canada, I know that our Whitman partner, APTN, is collaborating with Netflix and making comedy series. And I know that Netflix has even done Māori content. So that is something I believe, and I don't think they do that just to be kind, but because we have unique stories, and that is something authentic that no one else can provide. As Shane also so pointed out, we have challenges connected to the staff and recruitment. Many of our languages are endangered. We have a very limited pool of talent, and thus we must focus our talent on where we can make the best use of them. We work very hard to foster the talent. We have a talent program where we build skills and programs for building competence. So that is a big focus for us now. I also see that the global competition with digitalization also comes competition, and that is a big challenge for us. Our audience, they have access to Netflix, to Disney, to YouTube. the platforms that all other people on the globe use, and that is competition. And that means that we must strive to provide world-class content, so that, especially for our kids, they are in particular important for us, since they have a key role in the language strengthening in our community. They are very picky on what content they select, and thus our content must have world-class standards, and we must work very hard in providing that. I put technology on the bottom there. I think that provides opportunities. I dream that one day AI will make us capable of providing any content in the Sápmi language. Any content on the globe will be provided in the Sápmi languages. That is my dream for the future. However, that also represents challenges, since, well, as you may know, our content is not only about language, it's also about culture, and it's all about telling our own stories from our own perspective. So we must work very hard to make our way and holding our position, so that we still have the capability to do that, no matter of technology. I also see that, and I believe Monica will tell you more about that, but I also believe that there are some dangers to the smallest languages in terms of that and BBC ALBA also said that digitalization can kind of overwhelm small languages, since, well, they are so small. Well, with AI, there's a danger that well, our language somehow can be drowned of artificial intelligent content. So I'm close to the end. When I chose this photo, my intention wasn't not to show the finger to you. It's from a series that we are producing right now, a drama series we are filming right now. But I believe in terms of taking our responsibility seriously, we need to have clear and high ambitions in terms of providing our audience the best content that we can give, and give them world-class standards. And I think they deserve that, and I strongly believe that we are capable of doing that. We also need to be loyal to the audience. We do massive, in-depth research on the needs of our audience, and we must never forget that who we are. Therefore, we are there for our audience, to fill their needs in terms of strengthening their language, strengthen their identity, and for being Sámis also in the future. And as many have pointed out, we need strong collaboration. We need to join forces. I'm really glad for being part of WITPEN. I'm really glad for being here. I've learned so much from you. It's given me new perspectives, new ideas that me and my colleague Monica will bring back to Sápmi. And I'm really glad, well, that makes me come to the conclusion of my presentation. I'm afraid I'm standing between you and the lunch break. But, well, we are really strong together, and I'm really looking forward to strengthening the collaboration and to seek even new opportunities. Kiitos. Thank you.
Tôi đi là部分人同歡喜合作的邀請到人民會議馬拉有時董事長，然後公司團議台的李東熙李台長。喺家對幾個來賓的分享當中，我相信大家要聽到更多，佢哋對其他國家響應了你愛維持、愛推廣自家語言文化所做的大變，然後獨到的困難。I firstly want to say thank you again for coming here with us today and sharing your professional experiences and all the spatial perspectives. I have already found some questions that the audience have asked online. If you don't mind, I would like to go with the questions that have been asked. For example, we now have a audience, he or she want to know what's the percentage of the, for example, Māori or Sápmi shown on your program. And do you think that's the best status right now, or do you have a goal for that? I guess we may start with Shiang. It's about, for example, you have more than 800 hours a year, and do you have this language policy? For example, how many percentage shown in your language in Māori, or it's all in Māori? They want to know the details about that.
So we have 2 TV channels. One is a bilingual channel in Māori language and in English. The second channel, which was launched in 2008, is completely in the Māori language. In terms of the content that we deliver, new content every year, all new content must have a minimum 30% Māori language in it. The majority of the content that we deliver is in what we call the fluent category, which has more than 70% of the language in it. And then, of course, we have the remainder of content which has less than 70%.
If I may, would that be an ideal status you have reached, or you have a even longer goal? You want all in Sápmi, all in Whakaata Māori, in Māori only? Maybe the same question. How about the situation in your country too?
Well, to start with, I didn't mention that only half of our population speaks Sápmi. The other half doesn't speak our language. But our content on radio, 100% is in Sápmi. On TV also 100% in Sápmi and subtitled to Norwegian. On our online site, that's targeted both to Sámis and Norwegian people. So that's maybe half of the content is Sápmi and the other half is in Norwegian. And we often run parallel articles both in Sápmi and Norwegian. So.
To answer your second question, Paul, our aim is for all our content to be in the language, but we appreciate, like Johan and the Sámi people, not all Māori can speak the language. However, in saying that, we also believe that there are other broadcasters and media organisations that can deliver content to those that don't speak the language. We are focused on those that want to learn and use the language. We are unable to deliver to everyone's needs, so therefore we need to focus on those that are already interested or learning or using the language.
同款的问题，我嘛想要请教吕台长。伫客家电视台来讲，我当然嘛希望讲交因同款。会使客话比例是愈悬愈好。即马伫台语台的状况差不多是偌济是台语，偌济是非台语，你有一个理想的数字无？
大家好吼。对台语台来讲吼，阮是无定比例，但是若照阮放送的超过95%以上拢是台语的，大概是安尼。因为你各地来上节目嘛，无一定台语拢会晓，所以阮基本上是阮准伊会当用其他华语语言来表达。但是阮内部规定来讲，阮就是台语的节目，所以100%希望节目就是全台语的。但是因一寡现实的因素，比如讲为了不要讲，所以阮是伫节目中部分的节目中，甚至戏剧内底，阮嘛是无落去要求100%，大概是安尼。
我想这个问题对于 原民台来讲，可能会比我们有更多的挑战。就台湾原住民的状况，我们知道至少我们可能有2种说法，除了16族，甚至还有42族。那当然各族可能有自己的语言，究竟在语言的呈现上，原民台怎么去处理？那原民台现在的情形是不是可以跟我们分享一下？麻烦董事长。
谢谢。在开始之前，先用我的族语跟大家问候。Aku kaya kamu si cara wayam tama lufut dunia yami chi jirim su farai tama keipung。非常谢谢刚刚台长说邀请那用会原民台广播电台来分享我们的经验。我们的整个制播的原则，主要是在原住民的语言发展法里面，我们的整个节目不管是电视台或是广播电台，必须制播50%的族语，所以我们大概1半的这个播出的时数都必须符合是用原住民族语来制播。那因此对我们来说，16组的族语，这是一个非常大的难度。那因此，在早期我们就开始训练族语主播跟族语人才。因此，族语的制播人才跟族语人才，相对应我们的族语的时数是一个非常重要要面对的课题。那我们现在也正在推动。16组的族语，目前已经有3个族语老师、族语主播已经退休了。那接下来会有更多的长辈，我们的族语主播要退休，因此我们现在在推动年轻世代来衔接我们的族语的制播跟主播的挑战。那这是在原文会原民台广播电台，我们现在正在启动的一个方案。最后就是族语是原住民广电媒体或者是网络的社群媒体非常重要的一环。它必定要成为我们的载体。没有族语，我想广电媒体跟所有原住民形式的各种媒体都失去它的意义。这个也是我们现在共同面对的方向。谢谢。
我顺着董事长跟吕台长，那有一个观众，其实他或许是来自比较年轻的族群，他想要知道，当他在社会上，当他在生活中发现，好像我们制播的内容，或是这一个其实是他自己的固有传统文化，离他好像距离越来越远的时候，他提问：如果以他们这个年纪的年轻人想要跟我们有比较深的连结，他想要知道他该怎么做。那我们身为这个频道的经营者，不知道吕台长或者是马劳斯董事长在这方面要不要提供你们的见解？如何拉近跟年轻族群的距离？
台语台线，因为台长比我老，然后用台语的人比较多。
我看这少年族群的迄个收视率的收视应该是目前大家族群电视台的困境啦吼。阮台语台的收视族群其实嘛是年龄拢偏悬吼，所以即马阮嘛是开始咧发展数位内容吼，希望会当伫阮数位内容内底会当加发展，包括阮即马有拍一寡短影音吼。包括阮有新书的介绍吼，阮即马有要透过一个用英语来教台语的节目，甚至阮拍 Kals 嘛有咧做吼，阮有透过网络的一礼拜的节目介绍，拢透过网络去伫阮的社群媒体咧传播吼，所以这是目前台语台咧开始咧规划做，嘛应该开始咧做啊吼。当然第二个部分就是讲阮的节目的部分，因为老实讲，目前的收视族群是偏悬，所以基本上阮的节目希望讲会当搁较少年化吼。当然嘛是要照顾较年长，伊早期去用压迫伊，无法度看 台语的电视电视节目。所以阮一寡节目的规划当然嘛是要照顾较年长，但是阮希望阮未来的节目会当较符合社会大众，比如讲会当互台语正常化，会当主流化。所以阮基本上阮包括阮的戏剧综艺节目，阮目前开始咧规划，希望会当吸引较侪少年来参与，这是阮目前的做法就是。
那我们请年轻的马拉欧斯董事长。
谢谢。族语其实可以很时尚嘛，哈。那因此在园文会，我们的媒体家族，电视、广播或者是数位的网络，我们在直播上，我们最近也在推动，就是用音乐的这个形式来吸引年轻族群。那我们可以看到最近的潮流，就是原住民的新世代用族语创作音乐、创作艺术的氛围跟环境逐渐更加的强壮。那这个是我们广电媒体非常重要的资源。也因此，越多的音乐人使用族语，越多的艺术的创作使用族语，越多的文学形式使用族语，那这会丰富我们在直播电视跟广播的力道。那这个方向目前是我们的策略，让年轻人透过他们有兴趣的形式接触族语，然后传播族语，这是我们的方向。
What we were discussing about is one of the audience raised a question about how we connect us, I mean the operator of TV station, with younger audience. And I have to say, comparatively, both of you, Shiang and Johan, your situation is much luckier or say much better than us, because I have found that you use the sport program because the main targets are mostly younger generations. However, it's not happening here in Taiwan. Maybe it's to some degree, but we won't have that much of sport programs or the game times. So other than the sport programs, what are your strategies? What are your approaches to connect the younger generation?
The thing is that you have to enable and empower young people to make decisions, to be able to create their own content. And that's what we decided to do 3 or 4 years ago. We brought together a group of young people who know what young people want, and we enabled them by getting out of the way, giving them the resource and the support that they need to actually go and create the content that young people want. Because for far too long, older people have been creating the content for younger people, and it does not work. We must empower young people to be able to make the decisions around the content that they want to see, because as we all know, younger generations today, they know what they want, they know what they like and what they don't like. So that's one way in which we've been able to really resonate with younger audiences, by ensuring that they have the resource and support to be able to create content that they will engage in.
How about the situation in Sápmi?
First of all, I think you do a great job in Taiwan. I believe that you have. Well, we also strive to reach the young generations, and that's what really keeps us awake at night. However, I think it all starts. The most important thing we can do is to have a conversation with the young people, to understand how they think, because we must bear in mind that we are all over. We are past our 40s, and we're not thinking in the same way longer as the young generations do. So we have done a lot of effort into doing user insights to understand them, and we even put up 6 what we call user commands And I won't go through all of them. That's a lecture in itself. But for instance, they said that language is important, as you all have stated. They want us to use the Sami language. They want us to help them with learning about the Sami traditions, but in a kind of a modern way, an easier way to learning about them, not the kind of in a moralistic way, but in a more modern way. And they also want us to help them speaking about taboos in the Sami community that they are striving. Like for instance, we have put up a podcast that speak about, well, things that were really unheard about just a couple of years ago. We have a podcast in South Sami, a very small language that discusses like what is an orgasm in South Sami. They talk about homosexuality. They talk about a lot about topics that we wouldn't imagine that Sami media would bring up just a couple of years ago, and that is as a result from the user insights. We ask the young people what do they need, and we try to do our best to do that. And I'm really happy. The podcast has over 600 listeners. There are 500 speakers, so I don't know who the 100 others are. There must be more speakers out there than we know about.
这个机会我哋也客家电视台也想要带一下广告哦，是讲我留后生人做连接，确实也係我哋呢幾年三萬愛做嘅目標。其中客家電視台都今年開了兩隻全新嘅節目，一隻按照客語版上述，其實係短短嘅10分鐘嘅節目。頭前5分鐘我哋是係邀請呢下後生人。前位看前後對象嘅按照명風吼 influential， 很記得嚟上節目用簡單嘅客家像小課用嘅方式，本記得認識客家詩。前半段5分鐘啊，後半段5分鐘我哋是邀請真正專業嘅行業先生來教大家，透過我節目嘅形式，幫大家提供客家話、客家文化地圖。其實也做得留後生人嘅想法有連結，做得結合。那就係你今年開嘅新節目，也按照怪客聯盟是條推一動神奇嘅名嘅。佢喺客家電視台頭前他冇做過按照客家 talk show， 請後生嘅呢條演擺會對像舞台劇項表演嘅人，佢哋。對現場留言嘅時候，確實也會像咁樣，但係有觀眾，是係希望做啲來減，佢哋平常喺個無線電視會進行那條語文嘅發通，還是將愛我語文發通一辦到我入樣旁地度，本期一方面來參加留言嘅同時，一方面做嚟進行佢哋平常會進行嘅文化發通，透過呢一個過程來接觸到客家。And if you don't mind, I want to switch the gear a little bit and go to another question. It is actually an audience mentioned about he or she listen to your presentation carefully. She noticed you have this news deal, but the budget isn't from the government. They want to know, how did you get the money? That's not from your pocket, right?
I'm not sure if I understand the question, but we are primarily funded by government.
I mean the new studio you just showed us.
Right. By very good strategy, Paul. Yeah, I'll show you one day. I think though that at its heart is having the belief that you can do it. And despite the obstacles, whether it be through lack of funding or support, it's through sheer determination that you can get it done. And so it did mean clever accounting by making sure that we were saving funding over recent years to enable us to be able to invest in the facility. But just picking up on the earlier question around young people, one of the driving motivations behind the facility was so that we can use the production facility to help train young people to be content producers, content creators, working behind the camera, working on sound, working in front of the camera. And we don't have enough opportunities to be able to do that. So the production facility that I showed in my presentation is not only to create amazing content, it's also being used as a training facility to enable younger people who have the passion and will to be trained to be great content producers, content creators.
台港Shiang的同时，大家想的同时哈，我继续请教他们，我们还蛮多问题的哈。While they are thinking about further questions for us, we still have a lot to answer. For example, this one goes to Mr. Kals. Johan, you mentioned about the cooperation with Netflix. They have some Sápmi directors already. How you approach them, or it's vice versa, Netflix approach you, how does the cooperation go?
Oh, I'm sorry, we don't have a collaboration with Netflix. They have done their own work, and they have a collaboration with something that called the International Center for Sápmi Films. So they've done their own work. But I appreciate their initiatives to come up to Sápmis because, well, I believe, well, it means that there is a larger competition on Sápmi content, but that's a competition I really love because, well, they will give opportunity for Sápmi filmmakers. It will grow up an environment for that we can take advantage of sooner, and it will also put more pressure on us to make even better content in Sápmi. So that's a competition that I love, but we don't have any collaboration yet. I don't see that we shouldn't have that, but well, we don't have that. APTN in Canada has, but I can't tell more about that. So that is something you need to ask Monica about, Monica Ilya, head of CEO of APTN.
There's one thing I learned from Dòmhnall's presentation, from his video, that around 4 out of 5 the viewing are via YouTube. 我这个问题可能会马来西亚同时来请教陆台长还有马拉欧斯董事长。我相信我们都会面临这样的难题。好，现在我们在直播节目的同时，我们希望可以越多观众收视越好，所以我们不仅局限自己放在原有的频道上，我们也希望在不同的 OTT， 或者是现在大家很常使用的 YouTube 这类的频道也可以看得到。那会不会变成是一种两难的状态？刚才 BBC ALBA 的执行长提到，他们有80%的内容是透过 YouTube 收视。那我不知道其他的这些族群媒体们，你们在制定节目的播送政策的时候，怎么看待现在这些大军压境的 OTT 跟免费使用的网络平台？我们是不是先请陆台长有这点你来先分享不？恁的节目即马嘛拢有开伫 YouTube， 还是讲恁是安那去选择的？
对台语台来讲吼，阮目前所有节目拢放伫网络，这是放，因为阮是公广集团咧，所以阮其实所有的节目拢伫公广 OTT 平台，跟公司是同步的啦吼。但是阮本身阮家己一寡泡沫、一寡短影音，阮家己会经营阮的社群媒体吼。比如讲我举一个，阮最近这2天一支漫画吼，派对孔明卡，泡沫台语配音，大2-3天而已，大概几天而已，基本上超过11万人吼来点阅吼。所以阮基本上来讲，阮的节目部分，我们是配合公司 OTT 平台的运作吼。那本身所有阮家己经营的短影音的之类的是，阮台语台家经营。当然，阮内部咧讨论讲，有可能台语台家己的节目，阮家己透过阮家己的是不是用家己来上网？但是因为这牵涉到整个公司的政策，所以阮基本上目前是干那咧想这件代志尔，大概是。
这一个部分，马拉乌斯董事长。
谢谢。 刚才台长提到的这个方向，其实是族群媒体在当今我们非常就是重要的一个思考的议题。那如何在通路越来越这个多元的现况，那尤其是传统媒体一直在这个萎缩，或是数位媒体网络越来越强大的当今，那在原文会原民台跟广播电台，我们就从去年开始，我们就全力的让我们的媒体的操作往全媒体跟融媒体方向去推动。那因此我们在原文会的这个CF 的 Plus。那来扩充我们在网络平台的流量跟观看的次数，所以我们在操作上，电视跟广播的运作，逐渐更多的心力是往网络的平台走。那另外是我们也把我们的内容有更多的这个接近性，让新的观众，让非原住民的观众能够更加的喜爱我们的节目跟内容。那这个会在我们明年度原文会，我们在桃园有一个新的总部，即将在明年底，那就会开始完工。那我们在这个新的方向上，我们会将刚才提到的这几个部分规划到未来原文会在桃园的总部。那新的总部在这个各项的形式的媒体这作业跟内容上，我们会更多元、更多样化。谢谢。
If I put it this way, would you take the OTTs or streaming like YouTube more a threat or opportunity? Maybe we go first from Johan.
Well, NRK is actually moving away from third-party platforms altogether. We're decreasing our content that is shared on social media, and only a very few shows are displayed on YouTube. And that is because, well, we don't no longer trust tech companies in that are far away from where we are. We see many times that the algorithms don't serve our purposes and don't support independent media, for instance. So we try to move as far away from them as we can nowadays. However, you must bear that NRK has a very strong position in Norway. 90% of all people in Norway visit one of our platforms every day. So that makes that we have the possibility to move away from third platforms. So, but a few years ago we embraced the third-party platforms. Nowadays we're trying to move away, and I believe, well, but we're in a position where I believe we can do that, and but it's yet to see how successful we are in that strategy.
Sean, please.
As Johan has explained, there are many challenges with third-party owned platforms, like the algorithms that often change. For us, it's the data and having access to good data to be able to make good decisions. But the reality is that it's our audiences that have the final decision as to where they go to access content. We can only do what we can using our owned platforms. So with that in mind, we use the third-party platforms to promote content and our own platforms to encourage audiences to come to our platforms. And we find that that is a very good strategy. But the reality is that these bigger platforms are places where a lot of our audience currently exist. They're consuming their content from there. So we have to be in those places so that they can at least see some of the content that we have to offer. But our strategy is to use those platforms to help promote our content and the platforms and our own platforms for audiences to come to.
You 用如講有一隻問題問到吼，我想啊，做個代表近輩嘅50強下來回應嘅，所以講大家當上嘅啲家下呢條前簽嘅合作嘅備忘錄 MOU 到底有乜嘅做個期待嘅？我想做個從3隻層面來談。第一隻層面，我哋希望從近輩嘅安排重合係一隻開始聽聽。南北呢兩條有共同目標，可以透過媒體力量來保存、來推廣自家族群人語言嘅文化，唔係對自家嘅語言方單打獨鬥天。你希望對家同多講人人都要強調嘅一隻是 collaborate， 希望做啲合作。所以第一點，我哋希望節目模式新聞有機會做啲透過沙下來嘅一隻新嘅平台，你做啲交流。第二，進一步，你係咪有機會做人才嘅交流？因為各自有各自嘅專業，你希望講透過到對方嘅地方去學習，模式上建立一種高峰會嘅形式，進一步認識對方嘛。當然，第三，就算無法度像用實體個雕強化，當到文化嘅交流。當到觀念嘅交換，你也在持續來做，所以對用嘅合作嘅備忘錄簽訂以後，做啲打開對5隻電視台一隻全新嘅可能性。因為我哋嘅時間已經超過差唔多12分鐘，最尾一個請教一下，係咪有現場下可以對問問題？麻煩一下麥克風本街嘅卡數嘅小姐好嗎？
有一个问题是想要请问，因为刚刚的简报中有听到说，各国的族群媒体现在其实都面临资金啊，还有人才的短缺。那其实不仅我们需要社会上的支援，但是更多的时候我们其实需要政府的支援以及援助。那到底我们要族群媒体怎么样在一边维持自己族群媒体的自主性、主体性，然后还有一些新闻媒体可能应负的责任，然后一方面又兼顾族群媒体永续发展的面向，跟政府保持互动的关系。想要请问各位高阶主管们，认为族群媒体跟政府之间应该要保持怎么样的关系是最良好的
？You got a question, both of you? Okay.
Thank you for the very good question. Because sovereignty, autonomy, independence, being self-sustainable is very much part of our vision for the future. However, the reality is in Aotearoa, New Zealand, the government is obliged through the treaty that we signed in 1840 to ensure that our language and culture is protected because of what previous governments have done to our people, language and culture. So we will never ever allow them to obfuscate that responsibility and that obligation that they have to continue to fund and support organisations like Whakaata Māori. However, as a people that seek to have self-determination, we are always thinking about ways in which we can be self-sustainable, where we have our own resource and funding. The disappointing thing is that we only receive very small funding through advertising. And I know, for example, in Australia, a country very close to us, they have legislated for 3% of all advertising funding must be given to their Indigenous channel. So there are strategies that can be adopted that actually enable us to be able to be self-sustaining like that. And so we continue to talk to politicians and lawmakers to be able to have policies like that. And we do need policies because the reality is that these big commercial giants don't just come and empty their pockets for you. So sometimes they need legislative encouragement to be able to support us. So there are ways and means, and we are very passionate about that, about eventually and one day being self-sustaining through our own efforts and through our own work. But thank you, that's a very, very good question.
那最后，我们是不是还有其他的来宾要补充， 或者针对这个问题要做回应。Would you like to respond to the lady's question or anything else you want to add, Johan?
It's a really good question. As independent media actors, we love our independence, and that's really important. We had a discussion about that yesterday. We're meeting with our friends from Taiwan. I believe that's really tricky because, well, on the one side, we of course we need the funding, and speaking from our perspective, we are fully funded by the government. So of course we need some kind of collaboration with the government. However, we also need our independence to fulfill our role as a media. So I think the best thing that we can do is to educate politicians about the value of having independent media for democratic purposes, and to show them the value in terms of strengthening the values of the society, the language, the culture, and so on. So they understand that, and we have said to the politicians that the most important thing for us is that we have stability in regards of funding, so that our funding is not up to a constant political debate. Because, well, I believe that's a very frightful route to go if the politicians are going to debate the size of our funding on a daily basis. They need to stay away from certain questions and give us the room that we need to do our role as best as we can.
請問我簡單來回應下你同學哈，而家嘅問題，像而講有兩隻主體，一隻是政府，一隻係族群媒體。故所我做呢個問題，再從兩隻角度來看，提前看呢族群媒體設計，是從我家條前對我嘅簡報地度有講到嘅Hakka電視台係一隻預算完全來自納稅人稅金嘅公共媒體。故所呢設計當清楚嘅認知講，呢嘅身份係一隻公共是講呢一隻媒體係所有人嘅。其實唔係政府嘅，你係呢設計嘅態度。另一點對政府方面，我相信透過家下包含呢互動之中，條前次次中有講到，今年嘅公司法修法，唔單將拿鐵嚟本公司，還有幾隻電視台預算嘅大限，也確立一件事情，包含台二台、Hakka電視台，撒下來嘅經費係用寄付嘅方式，唔像頭擺Hakka電視台係一隻政府嘅標案。佢當然，然後撒下來，你用寄付嘅位對長度項目供應。故所我相信從呢兩隻改變兩隻角度來看，你愛維持自己脱離性也好，自主性也好，係一隻新嘅開始，也做得有很大嘅期待。因為時間嘅關係，你係咩準備上半場是進行到兩位。我們請現場所有觀眾，是不是給4位來賓一個熱烈的掌聲？